Now let's begin. The December wind cut through Harvey Sawyer's jacket as he stood on the porch of what used to feel like home. The house was dark except for a single light in the living room. No decorations adorned the windows, no wreath hung on the door, no warmth radiated from within. He'd driven 18 hours straight from Fort Bragg, burning through his emergency leave, because something in his gut told him Melody needed him. His 8-year-old daughter had sounded strange on their last call, her voice too careful, too measured for a child who should have been buzzing about Christmas. Harvey tried the door. Unlocked. Inside, the house was silent. Empty boxes sat stacked near the garage door, designer luggage tags still attached. The kitchen was pristine, untouched. His boots echoed on the hardwood as he moved through rooms that felt more like a museum than a home. Then he saw her. Melody sat cross-legged on the floor beside a bare Christmas tree, still in its stand but undecorated. She wore her favorite purple sweater, the one he'd sent her from his last deployment, and her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail she'd clearly done herself. No presents surrounded her. No cookies had been left out. No signs that anyone had celebrated anything. "Dad." She jumped up, and Harvey caught her in his arms, lifting her like she weighed nothing. She buried her face in his shoulder, and he felt her small body shudder. "Hey, baby girl. I'm here now." He carried her to the couch, settling her beside him. "Where's your mother?" Melody pulled back, and Harvey saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. Not the innocence of a child, but a weariness that didn't belong there. She reached into her pocket and handed him a folded note. The paper was expensive, cream-colored with embossed edges. His wife's mother had always had pretentious taste. "We're celebrating the holidays in the Bahamas. Melody is your responsibility now. We'll discuss permanent arrangements when we return. The key is under the mat if you need it. Don't bother calling. Deborah." Harvey read it twice, his jaw tightening with each word. "When did they leave?" 3 days ago. Mom said you probably wouldn't show up anyway, so they should go ahead without us. Grandma Deborah said I could stay here or go to the neighbors if I got scared." Melody's voice was steady, but her hands twisted in her lap. "I wasn't scared. I know how to lock doors and call 911. Jesus Christ." Harvey pulled her close again. "Did they leave you food?" "There's stuff in the freezer. I made mac and cheese yesterday." She said it like it was normal, like children should have to fend for themselves on Christmas. "Dad, I'm glad you came. I found something." "Found what, sweetheart?" Melody wiggled free and ran upstairs. Harvey heard her footsteps in what he knew was the master bedroom, the one his wife Christine had been sleeping in alone for the past year, since she'd asked him to take the guest room during his leaves. When his daughter returned, she carried a leather portfolio, the kind lawyers used. It was locked, but someone, Melody, presumably, had forced it open. The brass clasp hung broken. They were all packing. Grandpa Gerald was yelling at Mom about something, and Grandma was in her room. I was supposed to be watching TV, but I went to use the bathroom in Grandpa's office because the other one was occupied. She opened the portfolio carefully. This was in his desk drawer. It wasn't even locked. I think he forgot it was there. Inside were documents. Harvey's hands stilled as he recognized his father's signature on the first page. It was dated 15 years ago, 6 months before Aaron Sawyer had died of a heart attack brought on by stress, according to the death certificate. Harvey had been 19, home from his first deployment when they'd buried his old man. His father had been a contractor, a good one, building custom homes in the Charlotte area. Small operation, just him and a crew of 6, but honest work that paid the bills. Then one day, his biggest contract fell through. The client claimed faulty work, sued, and Aaron Sawyer lost everything. The stress killed him within months. Harvey's hands trembled as he read. The document was a contract between his father's company and Hoffman Development Group, Gerald Hoffman's company. But there were amendments, changes made after his father had signed. Structural requirements altered, material specifications modified, timelines compressed. All designed to make the original bid impossible to fulfill profitably. Beneath that was more. Emails printed out, showing Gerald coordinating with the building inspector, a man named Wayne Werner, to fail the project at strategic points. Photographs of Werner accepting envelopes. Bank statements showing payments from Hoffman Development Group to an offshore account that appeared to belong to Werner's wife. They'd set his father up, sabotaged him, destroyed him deliberately. And at the bottom of the portfolio was the prize, a handwritten note from Gerald to his accountant. dated 3 months after Aaron's death. Sawyer property acquired at auction. Demo scheduled for next month. The land is perfect for the retail complex. Make sure the liquidation sale covers our acquisition costs. They'd stolen his father's company, his reputation, and then bought the land for pennies on the dollar. Harvey started laughing. It started as a chuckle and built into something darker. Melody watched him with worried eyes. "Dad, it's okay, baby." He smoothed her hair back. "You did good. Really good. Did anyone see you take this?" "No. I put it in my backpack with my homework folders. They didn't even check." "Smart girl." He kissed her forehead. "Your grandfather thought I was just some dumb grunt, didn't he? Someone he could push around. Someone not good enough for his precious daughter." Harvey had met Christine Hoffman at a charity event 9 years ago. She'd been volunteering. He'd been in dress uniform representing the base at a fundraiser. She was beautiful, smart, kind, or so he'd thought. They'd married quickly, probably too quickly. Melody had been born a year later, and for a while, Harvey had believed he'd built something real. But Deborah and Gerald Hoffman had never approved. Harvey wasn't from money. He'd grown up working class, joined the army because it was his best option, worked his way up to captain through grit and competence. To the Hoffmans, he was just the help in a uniform. They'd smiled at the wedding and sniped ever since. The past year had been the worst. Christine had grown distant during his deployment. When he came home on leave, she was cold, mechanical. He tried to save the marriage, suggested counseling, but she just stared at him like he was a stranger. Now he understood. Her parents had been whispering poison in her ear for years, and she'd finally listened. "I need to make some calls," Harvey said. "But first, we're getting out of this house. We're going to a hotel, ordering room service, and watching whatever movies you want. Tomorrow, we'll figure out Christmas. Deal?" Melody's face lit up for the first time. Deal. As they packed her bag, Harvey's mind was already working. The Hoffmans had no idea what was waiting for them. They thought they'd won, thought they'd pushed him out, claimed his daughter as their burden while they lived it up in paradise on money stolen from his father's corpse. They had no idea who Harvey Sawyer really was. Not the quiet son-in-law who tolerated their insults. Not the absent soldier they could dismiss. They were about to learn what happened when you wronged a man who'd spent 15 years learning strategy, planning operations, and executing missions in places where mistakes meant death. Harvey Sawyer was coming for them, and he was going to make them pay for every goddamn thing they'd taken. The hotel room was warm, and Melody was finally asleep, curled up under the comforter with her worn stuffed rabbit clutched tight. Harvey sat at the small desk, the portfolio spread before him, and made a list. Not of evidence, he had that. A list of people. First, Tony Farley, his old squad mate who'd left the army and gone to work as a private investigator in Raleigh. Tony owed him a favor. Harvey had pulled him out of a bad situation in Kandahar that would have ended his career. Second, Clifford Byers, a lawyer Harvey had helped when some local punks tried to shake down his practice for protection money. Clifford had connections in the Charlotte legal community. Third, Dennis Harmon, a forensic accountant who'd married Harvey's cousin. Dennis could trace money through a maze of shell corporations. But before any of that, Harvey needed to understand the full picture. He opened his laptop and started digging into Hoffman Development Group. Public records, news articles, business filings. What he found made his blood run cold, and his smile widen. Gerald Hoffman had built an empire on the same tactics he'd used on Aaron Sawyer. Over the past 15 years, Hoffman Development had acquired 17 properties through questionable means. Small contractors hired and then sabotaged. Building inspectors who found violations that mysteriously disappeared after the properties changed hands. Every time, Gerald bought at auction or through private sales at a fraction of market value. It was a pattern, a system, and it was still ongoing. Harvey had met Christine at a gala for wounded veterans. She'd been 23, fresh from business school, doing volunteer work that looked good on a resume. He'd been 26, a lieutenant with 2 deployments under his belt and a chest full of commendations he never talked about. She'd approached him at the bar, asked about his service, seemed genuinely interested. When she laughed at his stories, it felt real. Their first real date had been miniature golf. She'd worn jeans and a simple blouse, left her Tiffany jewelry at home. She'd told him about growing up in Charlotte's elite circles, how suffocating it could be, how everyone expected her to marry some trust fund brat from Duke or Chapel Hill. Harvey had listened, thinking maybe she was different from the rich girls he'd imagined. Maybe she wanted something real. He'd been half right. Christine had wanted to rebel against her parents' expectations for about 6 months. Then Deborah Hoffman had started calling more often. Gerald had started insisting on Sunday dinners. The pressure built slowly, like water against a dam. By the time they'd married, cracks were already forming. Melody's birth had delayed the inevitable. For 3 years, Christine had been a devoted mother, and Harvey had convinced himself they were happy. But Gerald had never stopped undermining him. Casual comments about Harvey's salary. Questions about what kind of future the Army really offered. Suggestions that Christine deserved better than base housing and deployment cycles. The final push had come 8 months ago. Harvey's mother had died. Cancer, quick and brutal. He'd taken emergency leave, come home to bury her and settle her affairs. She'd left him the house he'd grown up in, the only thing Aaron Sawyer hadn't lost before his death. It was small, needed work, but it was paid off and it was home. Christine had refused to even look at it. We're not moving into some rundown neighborhood, Harvey. Think about Melody's schools. Think about our future. Our future, Harvey had repeated. You mean your parents' future. The fight that followed had been their worst. She'd called him selfish. He'd called her a puppet. She'd thrown a glass that shattered against the wall. He'd walked out and slept in his truck that night. When he came back, Christine had already called her parents. Gerald had shown up with his lawyer. No divorce yet. Christine wasn't ready to pull that trigger. But a separation. Harvey moved to the guest room when he was home, spent his deployments wondering if his marriage would exist when he got back. And through it all, he tried to protect Melody from the poison. Apparently, he'd failed. Because here she was, abandoned by her mother on Christmas, treated like an inconvenience by the grandparents who claimed to love her. Harvey's phone buzzed. Tony Farley had responded to his message. 30 minutes. IHOP on Independence. Bring whatever you've got. Harvey looked at Melody, still sleeping peacefully. He called the front desk, asked if they had anyone who could sit with his daughter for an hour. The night manager, a woman named Barb Lindsay with kind eyes and grandchildren of her own, said she'd come up herself during her break. Military, she asked when she arrived, looking at Harvey's bearing, his short hair, the way he stood. Yes, ma'am. My son's Army. Second tour in Germany. You leave that baby girl with me, and you take care of whatever you need to take care of. Tony Farley hadn't changed much. Still built like a linebacker, still wearing his trademark aviators even at night. They took a corner booth, and Harvey slid the portfolio across the table. Tony read in silence, his jaw working a piece of gum. When he finished, he let out a low whistle. Hoffman. Gerald Hoffman. Jesus, Harvey, you married into the snake pit. You know him? Know of him. He's got a reputation. Dirty developer, connected politicians, enough money to make problems disappear. Tony tapped the documents. This right here? This is dynamite. But it's also 15 years old. Statute of limitations on fraud is what? 10 years in North Carolina. For criminal charges. Civil is different. You planning a lawsuit? Because that'll take years, cost a fortune, and Hoffman's got lawyers who'll bury you in motions. Harvey shook his head. I'm not looking for court. I'm looking for leverage. And I need to know everything about Gerald Hoffman. Business, personal, criminal. Everything. Tony grinned. Now you're speaking my language. I assume time is a factor. They're back in 5 days. New Year's Eve. That's tight. But doable. Tony pulled out his phone. I've got contacts. People who specialize in deep background. Won't be cheap. I've got savings. Your deployment money? Harvey, it's my money, and I'm using it to protect my daughter. Gerald and Deborah Hoffman abandoned an 8-year-old on Christmas. They destroyed my father. They poisoned my marriage. And I guarantee they've hurt other people the same way. Harvey leaned forward. I need ammunition, Tony. Every skeleton in their closet, every dirty deal, every person they've screwed over. Can you get it? Tony studied him for a long moment. You're serious about this? Dead serious. Okay, give me 3 days. I'll call in every favor I've got. He paused. What about your wife? What about her? Is she part of this? The revenge, I mean. Harvey thought about Christine, the woman he'd loved, who'd slowly transformed into someone cold and distant, who'd chosen her parents over their daughter, who'd looked at him during their last argument like he was something she'd scraped off her shoe. I don't know yet. Right now, I'm focused on the people who started this mess. Gerald and Deborah. The rest will sort itself out. They talked for another hour. Tony knew people, a journalist who'd investigated construction fraud, a former city councilman who'd lost his seat after opposing one of Gerald's developments, a contractor who'd been bankrupted under circumstances similar to Aaron Sawyer's. Each name was another potential ally, another piece of the puzzle. When Harvey returned to the hotel, Melody was awake, watching cartoons with Barb. "She's a sweetheart," Barb said. "Reminds me of my granddaughter. You take care of her, you hear?" "I will. I promise." After Barb left, Melody crawled into Harvey's lap. "Is everything okay, Dad?" "It will be." He smoothed her hair. "Hey, I've been thinking. How would you like to spend Christmas with me? Just the two of us. We could go to the mountains, find a cabin, make it our own thing." Her eyes lit up. "Really? We don't have to wait for Mom and Grandma and Grandpa." The fact that she sounded so hopeful about avoiding them broke something in Harvey's chest. "Really? We leave tomorrow. We'll have our own Christmas, and it'll be better than anything they could have planned. Can we build a snowman? We'll build the biggest snowman North Carolina has ever seen." She hugged him tight, and Harvey made another promise silently, not just to protect her, but to show her what family really meant. Not the Hoffman's twisted version, where love came with conditions and money bought loyalty. Real family, the kind his father had shown him before Gerald Hoffman had destroyed him. The next morning, they checked out early and drove west toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. Harvey had rented a cabin outside of Boone, remote, peaceful, with a fireplace and a view of the peaks. On the way, they stopped at a Target, where Melody picked out a small artificial tree and ornaments. Harvey bought her gifts, books, art supplies, a new winter coat she actually needed. They spent Christmas Eve decorating the tree together, making hot chocolate, watching old movies. Melody fell asleep on the couch, and Harvey carried her to bed. He stood in the doorway, watching her breathe, and thought about all the Christmases the Hoffmans had probably ruined with their criticisms and their conditional affection. Never again. His phone buzzed. Tony had sent preliminary information, a dossier on Gerald Hoffman that was already revealing. Failed business partnerships, suspicious fires at properties he later acquired, allegations of bribery that had never stuck. And one particularly interesting detail, Gerald was being investigated by the state attorney general's office for bid rigging on a recent public project. The investigation had stalled, but the investigator, a woman named Erin Hickey, was still looking for evidence. Harvey smiled in the darkness. The pieces were coming together. On Christmas morning, Melody opened her presents with genuine joy, not the forced politeness Harvey had seen at Hoffman family gatherings. They built their snowman. It was more of a snow creature, lopsided and silly, but Melody loved it. They made pancakes for lunch, played board games, talked. "Dad," she asked that evening, "are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask that?" "Because she doesn't love you anymore. I can tell." Melody's voice was matter of fact, too wise for her years. "And you're sad when you're around her. I don't want you to be sad." Harvey pulled her close. "Whatever happens with your mom and me, you need to know something. I will always be your father. I will always protect you. I will always come when you need me. That will never change. Understand?" "I understand." She paused. "Dad, I'm glad it's just us for Christmas. This is better." "Yeah, baby. It really is." Over the next 2 days, while Melody explored the woods around the cabin and made snow angels, Harvey worked. Tony's information kept coming. So did data from Dennis Harmon, who'd started tracing the Hoffmans' financial networks. And Clifford Byers had found 3 former employees of Hoffman Development willing to talk about Gerald's illegal practices, off the record, for now, but they'd testify if needed. The most valuable piece came from Erin Hickey herself. Harvey had called her, introduced himself as someone with information about Hoffman Development. She'd agreed to meet after New Year's. "I've been trying to nail Gerald Hoffman for 2 years, she'd said on the phone. "If you've got solid evidence, I'm listening. I've got more than evidence. I've got a gift wrap case. But I need something from you first." "What's that?" "When this goes down, I need protection for my daughter. Hoffman will try to use her in the custody battle, claim I'm an unfit parent. I need documentation that I'm cooperating with law enforcement, that I'm the good guy here." There was a pause. "Are you the good guy?" "I'm a father protecting his child from people who abandoned her on Christmas." "You tell me. Send me what you've got. I'll review it. If it's as good as you say, we'll talk about arrangements." Harvey sent a carefully curated portion of the evidence, enough to show the pattern of fraud, but not everything. He wanted leverage, insurance. If the state attorney general's office moved on Gerald, that was fine. But Harvey wanted his own pound of flesh too. On December 29th, they drove back to Charlotte. Melody was quiet in the car, and Harvey knew she was dreading returning to that cold house, to her mother's indifference and her grandparents' contempt. "We're not going back there," Harvey said. "We're getting your things, and then we're staying at a new place. Somewhere that's just ours." "Where?" "Your grandma's house. The one she left me. I've been fixing it up." It wasn't entirely true. He'd only started basic repairs, but it was his, and it was away from the Hoffmans. They arrived at the marital home to find it still empty. The Hoffmans' flight wasn't due back until New Year's Eve. Harvey and Melody packed her clothes, her books, her treasures. He left a note for Christine. "Melody is with me. She's safe, happy, and loved. Things she wasn't when you left her alone. If you want to discuss custody, call my lawyer. If you want to be her mother again, you know where to find us." Harvey. He left Clifford Byers' card on the counter. Then they went to the house on Oakmont Street, the house where Harvey had grown up. It needed paint, and the furnace made odd noises, but there was a yard for Melody to play in and a garage where Harvey's father had taught him to fix cars. Standing in the driveway, Harvey felt Aaron Sawyer's presence like a hand on his shoulder. "I'm going to finish what you started, Dad," he whispered. "I'm going to make them pay." Inside, Melody explored while Harvey made a final call to Tony. "Please tell me you have something good." "Oh, I've got something better than good. I've got something beautiful." Tony's voice practically sang. "Gerald Hoffman isn't just dirty. He's stupid dirty. He's been using the same offshore accounts for 15 years. Same shell corporations. Same patterns. It's like he thought he was untouchable. Is that all? That's not even the best part. Remember Wayne Werner, the building inspector from your dad's case? Still on the city payroll. Still taking bribes. And still working with Gerald. I've got photographs from 3 weeks ago. Werner meeting with one of Hoffman's project managers. Envelope changing hands. The project in question is the new convention center downtown. Public money, public project." Harvey's pulse quickened. "That's federal. That's FBI, baby. Public corruption, misuse of federal funds. This isn't just white-collar crime anymore. This is RICO territory if we can prove the pattern." Tony paused. "There's one more thing. Gerald has a safe deposit box at First Union Bank. Box number 447. My contact couldn't get inside, but the timing of his visits is interesting. Always right after a property acquisition. Always alone. You think he's keeping records? Insurance? Or trophies? Some of these guys, they're so arrogant they document everything. They think it makes them smart, proves they're cleverer than everyone else. If that box has what I think it has, you won't just destroy Gerald Hoffman. You'll bury him so deep he'll never see daylight again." Harvey leaned against the kitchen counter, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Can you get me access to that box? I can get you a look at the bank's security schedule and guard rotations. What you do with that information is your business." "Good. Send it tonight." After hanging up, Harvey found Melody in what had been his childhood bedroom. She was looking at old photos on the walls. Harvey as a boy, his father smiling in his work clothes, his mother laughing at a barbecue. "Is this Grandpa Aaron?" Melody asked, pointing at a picture of Aaron holding a young Harvey on his shoulders. "Yeah, that's him. Grandma Deborah says the Sawyers were poor and didn't matter. But Grandpa Aaron looks happy in these pictures. Happier than Grandpa Gerald ever looks." Harvey knelt beside her. "Money doesn't make people happy, baby. Love does. Family does. Your Grandpa Aaron didn't have much, but he loved big. He built things with his own hands. He was honest and kind and strong. The Hoffmans took advantage of that. They hurt him because they could. Is that why we found those papers? So you could hurt them back?" Harvey hesitated. How much truth could an 8-year-old handle? "So I could protect you, and make sure they don't hurt anyone else the way they hurt Grandpa Aaron." Melody thought about this. "Are you going to be mean to them?" "No. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to show everyone who they really are, and let them face the consequences of their own actions. Sometimes that's the best revenge, letting bad people destroy themselves." She nodded solemnly. "I think Grandpa Aaron would like that." "Yeah," Harvey said softly. "I think he would." That night, after Melody was asleep, Harvey spread out all his evidence on the dining room table. Documents from the portfolio. Tony's investigative reports. Dennis Harmon's financial trails. Aaron Hickey's case files. It was a web of corruption spanning 15 years, dozens of victims, millions of dollars in fraud. And at the center of it all, Gerald and Deborah Hoffman, untouchable in their wealth and connections. Not anymore. Harvey's phone showed December 30th, 11:47 p.m. In 25 hours, the Hoffmans would land at Charlotte Douglas International, tanned and relaxed from their Bahamas vacation, expecting to return to their pristine lives. They had no idea the trap was already set. Harvey opened his laptop and began typing an email to Aaron Hickey. The subject line read, "Everything you need to prosecute Gerald Hoffman." The body was simple. Attached you'll find evidence of 15 years of fraud, bribery, and corruption by Hoffman Development Group and its principals. I have additional documentation that I'll provide upon meeting. I'm also providing information on an ongoing crime. Access to a safe deposit box containing further evidence. I'm willing to cooperate fully with your investigation. In return, I need documentation of this cooperation for family court purposes. My daughter has been endangered by the defendant's actions, and I intend to ensure she's never in their custody again. He attached a carefully curated selection of documents, enough to prove the case, not enough to give away everything. Insurance, as always. Then he sent a second email to Wayne Werner's supervisor at the city building department. Anonymous tip about an inspector taking bribes, with photographic evidence attached. The bureaucracy would take time to respond, but the seed was planted. Third email, to a reporter Tony had mentioned, an investigative journalist named Oliver Hunter who'd been digging into construction fraud for the Charlotte Observer. If you want the story of the decade, meet me on January 2nd. Each message was a thread in the web. Each thread was a trap. And when the Hoffmans walked into it, they wouldn't just stumble, they'd hang themselves. Harvey closed his laptop and looked around his father's house. Tomorrow, he'd spend with Melody, giving her one more day of peace before the storm. Then New Year's Eve, when the Hoffmans returned. Then the systematic destruction of everything they'd built on lies and stolen money. "I'm coming for you," Harvey whispered to the darkness. "And you're going to wish you'd never heard the name Sawyer." New Year's Eve morning broke cold and clear. Harvey made breakfast, pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, Melody's favorite, and they ate together while she chattered about starting back to school, about her friends, about anything except the inevitable return of her mother and grandparents. At noon, Harvey's phone rang. "Christine, we need to talk." Her voice was clipped, businesslike. "I'm back tonight. I saw your note. How was the Bahamas?" Harvey kept his tone neutral. Just don't. A pause. "You had no right to take Melody without telling me." "I had every right. I'm her father." "You abandoned her." "I didn't abandon her. I left her at home where she was safe. For 3 days. On Christmas. She's 8 years old. She had food, shelter, everything she needed." Christine's voice rose. "Not everyone can run off and play hero like you, Harvey. Some of us have responsibilities. Responsibilities like partying in the Caribbean while your daughter sits alone in an empty house." "My parents invited me. It was a family trip. Melody is family. Or did you forget that?" Silence. "Then, my parents said you'd make this difficult. They said you'd use Melody as a weapon." Harvey laughed, the sound bitter. "Your parents said that? The same parents who wrote a note calling their granddaughter a burden? Those parents. That's not. They didn't mean." Christine stumbled over her words. "It was taken out of context." "Really? What's the context where abandoning a child on Christmas is acceptable?" "I'm done arguing. We're landing at 7. I expect Melody to be at the house at 8 so we can discuss this properly. As a family." "No." "Excuse me. I said no. Melody stays with me. If you want to see her, you can come here. But she's not setting foot in that house until we have a custody arrangement in writing. You can't do this. You're deploying in 2 months. You can't take care of her full time." Harvey's grip on the phone tightened. "Watch me. I'll resign my commission if I have to. Melody comes first. You'd throw away your career?" "In a heartbeat. For her." Another pause, longer this time. When Christine spoke again, her voice had changed, softer, almost uncertain. "Harvey, what happened to us? You chose your parents over our daughter. Over me. Over everything we built." He kept his voice steady, factual. "You let them poison you against me until you couldn't even see straight anymore. And when they decided Melody was inconvenient, you went along with it. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Christine. My father learned that when your father destroyed him. I learned it when I buried both my parents before I turned 30. and Melody learned it when her mother left her alone on Christmas. Harvey took a breath. You want to fix this? Fine. But it starts with you choosing your daughter. Not your parents. Not their money. Not their approval. Her. I don't know if I can do that. At least she was honest. Then I guess we know where we stand. I'll have my lawyer contact you about custody. And Christine, whatever happens next, whatever comes out about your parents, remember that you had a choice. You could have been different. He hung up before she could respond. Melody appeared in the doorway. Was that Mom? Yeah. Is she mad? She's confused. Harvey pulled her into a hug. But that's not your problem. You're safe, you're loved, and nothing is going to change that. The hours until evening ticked by slowly. Harvey kept Melody occupied with movies and games, but his mind was racing. Tony had sent the final piece of information that morning, Gerald Hoffman's schedule for tonight. A New Year's Eve party at the Hoffman estate, starting at 9. Politicians, business leaders, society's elite. Gerald's annual power display. It was perfect. At 7:15, Harvey's doorbell rang. He checked the camera, a home security system he'd installed that morning, and saw Christine standing on the porch. Alone. He opened the door. She looked tired, her tin not quite hiding the shadows under her eyes. Can I see her? Melody. Harvey called. Your mom's here. His daughter emerged from her room, walking slowly. She hugged Christine, but it was perfunctory, obligatory. Hi, Mom. Hi, baby. I missed you. Christine held her tight. I'm so sorry about Christmas. It was wrong. I should have been here. Why weren't you? The simple question hung in the air. Christine looked at Harvey, then back at Melody. Because I made a mistake. I let Grandma and Grandpa convince me that you'd be fine, that it was just one Christmas. But it wasn't fine. It was wrong. Are you going to make the same mistake again? Melody's voice was small but firm. I don't know, sweetie. I'm trying to figure out what's right. Dad knows what's right. He came for me. He always comes. Christine's eyes filled with tears. I know. Your dad is a good man. Better than I've been treating him. She looked at Harvey. Can we talk? Just for a minute. They stepped onto the porch while Melody went back to her room. The night was cold, frost forming on the windows. My parents are furious, Christine said. They want to sue you for custody. They have lawyers ready to go. Let them try. Harvey, they have resources. Money. They can make this ugly. They already made it ugly when they called my daughter a burden. He studied his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, probably. Christine, I need you to understand something. I'm done playing nice with your parents. I'm done pretending they're good people. They're not. They're cruel, manipulative, and they hurt people for profit. That's not true. They're just protective, particular about success. They destroyed my father. Did you know that? She blinked. What? Harvey told her. Not everything. Not the evidence. Not the plan, but the basic facts. How Gerald had sabotaged Aaron Sawyer's business, forced him into bankruptcy, bought his property for pennies, and built an empire on the ruins. Christine's face went pale. That can't be right. My father wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Lie? Cheat? Hurt people? Christine, wake up. Your father is a predator. He's been doing this for years. My dad was just one victim. If that's true, why didn't you tell me before? I didn't know before. I just found proof. He softened his tone slightly. Look, I know you love your parents. I know this is hard, but you need to decide who you are. Are you going to be like them? Or are you going to be better? Christine wiped her eyes. What if I can't choose? What if I lose everything? Then you never really had anything. Harvey opened the door. You should go. Melody needs stability right now, and you need to figure out where you stand. Will you let me see her? After tonight. Always. I'd never keep her from her mother. But the Hoffmans? They don't get access until they can prove they won't hurt her again. Christine nodded, broken, and walked to her car. Harvey watched her drive away, feeling something close to pity. She was a casualty of her parents' poison, but she'd chosen to drink it anyway. At 8:30, Harvey called Clifford Byers. Everything ready for tomorrow? Papers are filed. Emergency custody hearing is scheduled for January 3rd. I've got 3 character witnesses lined up, and the evidence of abandonment is airtight. Unless the Hoffmans can prove immediate danger to the child, you'll get temporary custody easily. Good. And the other thing? The civil suit? That's trickier. Like I said, statute of limitations. I'm not worried about winning money. I'm worried about public record. When I file that lawsuit alleging fraud, it becomes public news. The kind of thing that gets picked up by investigative reporters. Clifford chuckled. You're a devious man, Captain Sawyer. I'm a motivated man. There's a difference. At 9 p.m., Harvey tucked Melody into bed. She grabbed his hand before he could leave. Dad, are you going to do something tonight? What makes you think that? You have that look. Like when you used to plan surprise parties for Mom. Like you're thinking really hard about something. Smart kid. Too smart. I'm going to start fixing some old problems. But you don't need to worry about it. You just need to sleep and dream about good things. Will it make the bad people go away? Eventually. It might take some time, but yeah, the bad people will get what they deserve. She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Harvey waited until her breathing evened out, then went to his car. The Hoffman estate was lit up like a Christmas tree. Ironic, considering they'd skipped actually celebrating Christmas. Cars lined the circular driveway, valets in penguin suits directing traffic. Harvey parked down the street and walked past, just another gawker admiring the wealth on display. He wasn't here to crash the party. He was here to watch, to observe, to confirm one final detail. At 9:45, he saw what he needed. Gerald Hoffman stepping out onto the balcony with a cigar, his face flushed with wine and self-satisfaction. Dennis Harmon stood beside him. Wait, not Dennis Harmon. Wayne Werner, the corrupt building inspector. The two men laughed about something, and Gerald handed Werner an envelope. Right there, in public, at a party full of witnesses. Harvey snapped photos with his phone. Not good enough for court, maybe, but good enough for Oliver Hunter's story. At 10 p.m., he returned to his car and made the call. Aaron, it's Harvey Sawyer. I'm sending you something right now. Photos of Gerald Hoffman passing an envelope to Wayne Werner tonight. Werner is the subject of your investigation into the Convention Center project, correct? Yes. Jesus, you actually got photos. Time-stamped, geotagged. I'm also ready to turn over the safe deposit box information. Box 447 at First Union Bank, registered to Gerald Hoffman under a corporate account. I believe it contains evidence of his pattern of fraud dating back 15 years. How do you know all this? Because I'm very good at my job, and my job is planning operations. Meet me tomorrow, January 1st, at noon. Bring a warrant for that safe deposit box, and I'll give you everything else you need to prosecute. This is incredible. If this pans out, Hoffman is going down for years. That's the idea. Oh, and Aaron, when you serve that warrant, do it publicly. At his home, if possible. I want maximum exposure. That's not usually how He abandoned an 8-year-old child on Christmas. He destroyed my father's life and business. He's hurt dozens of people and never faced consequences. So yeah, I want him humiliated. I want him to feel what it's like to lose everything. If that's not professional, too bad. It's justice. Aaron was quiet for a moment. Tomorrow, noon. Bring everything. Harvey hung up and drove home, his hands steady on the wheel. The trap was set. The pieces were in place. Now all he had to do was wait for the Hoffmans to step into it. He checked on Melody one more time, still sleeping peacefully, and then sat in his father's old recliner, looking at the photos on the walls. Aaron Sawyer smiled down at him, forever frozen in happier times. It's almost done, Dad, Harvey whispered. One more day, and they pay for everything. Outside, fireworks began exploding as midnight approached. The city celebrated the new year, unaware that for the Hoffman family, the celebration was about to end forever. Harvey raised a glass of whiskey to the photos. Happy New Year, you bastards. It's going to be your last good one. January 1st dawned gray and cold. Harvey made breakfast again, trying to keep things normal for Melody while his mind raced through contingencies. At 11 a.m., Barb Lindsay from the hotel called. She'd agreed to watch Melody for a few hours. Harvey dropped his daughter off, ignoring Melody's concerned looks. I'll be back soon. I promise. And when I get back, things are going to be different. Better. The meeting with Aaron Hickey took place at a coffee shop in South End. She arrived with a recorder and a legal pad, all business. Harvey handed over copies of everything. The original documents from Gerald's office, Tony's investigative reports, Dennis Harmon's financial analysis, photographs of Werner and Gerald. 2 hours of evidence, meticulously organized. Aaron's hands actually shook as she reviewed it. My God, this is bigger than I thought. It's not just the convention center. It's a decades-long pattern of organized fraud. Can you prosecute? Can I? Harvey, I can put Gerald Hoffman and Wayne Werner away for 10 to 15 years each. RICO charges, conspiracy, fraud, public corruption, the whole 9 yards. I'll need to bring in the FBI, probably the IRS too. She looked up. You realize you're going to have to testify. This will get ugly. The Hoffmans will come after you with everything they have. Let them. I've got nothing to hide. But I need that cooperation agreement. In writing. Today. She drafted it on her laptop, printed it at a nearby FedEx, and they both signed. Harvey Sawyer, cooperating witness in the investigation of Hoffman Development Group. It wasn't immunity. He wasn't accused of anything. But it was documentation that he was working with law enforcement, not against it. Proof for family court that he was the good guy. The warrant for the safe deposit box. Harvey asked. I'll have it by end of day. We'll execute it tomorrow morning. First thing. Will the press be there? Aaron smiled grimly. I'll make sure of it. The AG's office likes good publicity. And bringing down a corrupt developer who's been untouchable for years? That's career-making stuff. They shook hands, and Harvey felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The legal wheels were turning. Now for the personal touch. He drove to the Charlotte Observer building and asked for Oliver Hunter. The reporter was young, hungry, with the look of someone who lived on coffee and ambition. Harvey handed him a flash drive. What's this? The story of how Gerald Hoffman built his empire on fraud, bribery, and the destruction of small contractors. Everything's documented. Financial records, witness statements, photographic evidence. The AG's office is moving on him tomorrow. You want the exclusive? You've got until tomorrow evening to write it. Oliver's eyes went wide. Why me? Because Tony Farley says you're honest. Because you've been investigating this kind of corruption for years. And because I want everyone to know what the Hoffmans really are. Harvey leaned forward. There's a little girl who was abandoned on Christmas by her grandparents because they didn't want to be inconvenienced. That's the kind of people we're dealing with. Make sure everyone knows. Oliver plugged the flash drive into his laptop, scanned the first few files, and let out a low whistle. This is Pulitzer material. Just make sure you get it right. Lives were destroyed. My father died because of what Gerald Hoffman did to him. There are other victims too. They deserve justice. They'll get it. I promise. Harvey left, feeling the momentum building. Each piece falling into place. Each thread of the web pulling tighter. He picked up Melody and took her to the park, pushing her on the swings, catching her at the bottom of the slide, pretending everything was normal even though tomorrow would change everything. That night, after Melody was asleep, Harvey's phone rang. It was Christine. I talked to my parents. Her voice was strange, hollow. I told them what you said about your father. They denied everything. Said you were making it up to turn me against them. What do you think? I think. She paused. I think I've been blind for a long time. I found something tonight. In my father's study. More documents, similar to what Melody found. Things he's been hiding. Harvey, if what you're saying is true, it is true. And tomorrow, the whole world is going to know it. What did you do? I gave law enforcement everything they need to prosecute your parents for fraud, corruption, and racketeering. The Attorney General's office is serving warrants tomorrow morning. Christine sucked in a breath. You're destroying my family. No, your father destroyed families, including mine. I'm just making sure he finally faces consequences. Harvey's voice softened. Christine, you need to decide right now who you want to be. Because when this breaks, you're either going to stand with them or stand with your daughter. There's no middle ground anymore. I can't just abandon my parents. They abandoned our daughter. Remember that when you make your choice. She hung up without answering. Harvey stared at his phone, wondering if she'd ever find the courage to break free from Gerald and Deborah's influence. Probably not. Some people were too tangled in the web to ever escape. But Melody would escape. Harvey would make sure of it. January 2nd, 6 a.m. Harvey woke to his phone buzzing. Tony Farley. Turn on the news. Now. Harvey grabbed the remote. Every local channel was covering the same story. FBI and state investigators raiding the Hoffman estate. Gerald Hoffman being let out in handcuffs, still in his bathrobe, looking stunned. Deborah screaming at reporters. Boxes of documents being loaded into evidence vans. The anchors were breathless. Hoffman Development Group, one of Charlotte's most prominent real estate firms, is under investigation for allegedly systematic fraud and corruption spanning 15 years. Harvey watched with satisfaction as his trap sprang shut. Gerald's lawyer shouted about wrongful arrest, but investigators kept loading evidence. Wayne Werner was also being arrested at his home. The reporter mentioned an anonymous tip and documentary evidence and full cooperation from whistleblowers. His phone rang again. Aaron Hickey. The safe deposit box was a gold mine. Contracts, payment records, photographs. Gerald kept everything. Every bribe, every shady deal, every victim. It's like he wanted to document his own crimes. She sounded almost gleeful. We found records related to your father's case. Original contracts before they were altered. Emails between Gerald and Werner planning the sabotage. Harvey, we can prove everything. Good. There's more. We found evidence of 3 other contractors he destroyed the same way. They'll be able to file civil suits now. Join yours. Class action. The Hoffmans are going to be buried in litigation for years. How long until trial? Given the evidence, we'll offer a plea deal first. If Gerald's smart, he'll take it. 20 years, maybe. If he fights it and loses, he's looking at life. And Deborah? Accessory charges. She signed off on some of the deals, helped hide assets. 10 years minimum. Harvey closed his eyes, letting the satisfaction wash over him. Thank you, Aaron. Thank your daughter. If she hadn't found those documents, we never would have known. After hanging up, Harvey went to check on Melody. She was awake, watching the news with wide eyes. Is that Grandpa Gerald? Yeah, baby. Why is he in handcuffs? Harvey sat beside her. Because he did bad things for a very long time, and now he has to answer for them. Remember how I said bad people face consequences? This is what that looks like. Did you make this happen? I helped. I gave the police the information they needed to catch him. Melody processed this. Is Mom sad? Probably. He's still her father, even though he's a bad person. That's complicated. Are we safe now? We're safe. I promise. At 9 a.m., Clifford Byers called. Have you seen the news? Front row seat. Well, your custody hearing just got a lot easier. The judge isn't going to award custody to grandparents facing federal racketeering charges. I'd say you're looking at full custody, possibly with supervised visitation for Christine, depending on her involvement. She's not involved. She's just, Harvey searched for the word, collateral damage. Either way, Melody stays with you. I'll file the final paperwork today. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Reporters calling. Harvey didn't answer. The Hoffman's lawyer trying to reach him. He blocked the number. At 2 p.m., the Charlotte Observer published Oliver Hunter's article, Empire of Fraud, How Gerald Hoffman Built His Fortune on Lies and Stolen Lives. It was devastating. Detailed, sourced, damning. Oliver had interviewed 2 of the other contractors Gerald had destroyed. He'd traced the money, connected the dots, painted a picture of systematic corruption that had flourished for years while politicians and officials looked the other way. The article named names. Wayne Werner. City Councilman Alfonso Hancock, who'd approved suspiciously favorable zoning changes. Bank President Sean Powers, who'd facilitated the offshore accounts. It wasn't just Gerald going down. It was everyone who'd helped him. Harvey's phone buzzed with a text from Tony. Told you it was Pulitzer material. By evening, the story had gone national. CNN picked it up. MSNBC. Fox News. Everyone wanted a piece of the scandal. Gerald Hoffman, the untouchable developer, exposed and destroyed. And through it all, Harvey Sawyer's name never came up. He was just a cooperating witness, anonymous and protected, the way he wanted it. January 3rd was the custody hearing. Christine showed up, pale and shaken. Her parents were still in custody, unable to attend. The judge reviewed Clifford's evidence, the abandonment, the note calling Melody a burden, Christine's admission that she'd left her daughter alone for 3 days. Mrs. Sawyer, do you contest your husband's petition for primary custody? Christine looked at Harvey, then at Melody, sitting in the gallery. No, Your Honor. I don't. My husband is a good father. Better than I've been a mother. Melody should be with him. The judge granted Harvey primary custody with joint legal custody. Christine got visitation rights, supervised for the first 3 months, then reassessed based on her participation in family counseling. It was more than fair. Outside the courthouse, Christine approached Harvey. Can I talk to her? Of course. Melody came over, uncertain. Christine knelt down. Baby, I'm so sorry. For everything. For leaving you. For choosing wrong. For not protecting you the way your dad did. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I'm going to try to be better. I promise. Are you going to keep seeing Grandma and Grandpa? No. They made choices, bad choices, and I can't be part of that anymore. I'm going to make different choices from now on. Christine touched Melody's cheek. Your dad was right about everything. I should have listened to him years ago. Melody hugged her mother, and Christine held on tight, crying. Harvey felt something twist in his chest, not quite forgiveness, but maybe the possibility of it, someday. Over the next week, the dominoes kept falling. Wayne Werner cut a deal, testified against Gerald. Alfonso Hancock resigned from the city council. Sean Powers was fired from the bank. Gerald's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea, but Aaron Hickey wasn't budging. 25 years, take it or go to trial. Gerald took it. So did Deborah. Both pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. Sentencing was scheduled for March. Harvey started the process of filing the civil suit, not for himself anymore, but as part of the class action with the other destroyed contractors. They'd never get back what was taken, but the Hoffmans' assets would be liquidated, their estates sold. Every dollar would go to their victims. Poetic justice. By late January, life had settled into a new normal. Harvey submitted his resignation from the army, effective in April. He'd served his country for 15 years. Now it was time to serve his daughter. He had his father's house, some savings, and Clifford had offered him a job as an investigator. Turns out military planning skills translated well to legal work. Melody thrived. Away from the Hoffmans' toxic influence, she smiled more, laughed more, was just a kid again. Christine visited twice a week, slowly rebuilding trust. She'd gotten her own apartment, started therapy, began the hard work of figuring out who she was without her parents' money and approval. One evening in early February, as Harvey was tucking Melody into bed, she asked, "Dad, do you think Grandpa Gerald is sorry?" Honestly, probably not. People like him rarely are. They're sorry they got caught, but not sorry for what they did. That's sad. Yeah, it is. Harvey smoothed her hair back. But you know what's not sad? You being here, safe and loved. That's the good part of the story. Did we win? Harvey thought about his father, about Aaron Sawyer's destroyed business and broken heart, about 15 years of the Hoffmans hurting people without consequences. Yeah, baby. We won. After she fell asleep, Harvey went downstairs and found the portfolio, the one Melody had discovered in Gerald's office. He looked through it one more time, then placed it in a fireproof safe. Not to destroy it, but to keep it. A reminder of where they'd been, what they'd survived. His phone buzzed. A text from Tony. Sentencing date moved up. March 1st. Should I get us ringside seats? Harvey smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it for the world. March 1st arrived with the promise of spring. Harvey and Melody drove to the courthouse together. Clifford met them outside, along with Tony, Dennis Harmon, and Oliver Hunter. Aaron Hickey was already inside, preparing for the sentencing. The courtroom was packed. Gerald's other victims filled the gallery, along with reporters and curious onlookers. When Gerald and Deborah were let in, wearing prison jumpsuits instead of designer clothes, a murmur ran through the room. They looked diminished. Gerald had lost weight, his face gaunt and gray. Deborah kept her eyes down, her usual haughty expression replaced by something broken. The judge was a stern woman named Carolina Durham, known for harsh sentences in white-collar cases. She read through the charges, the plea agreements, the victim impact statements. Then she looked directly at Gerald. "Mr. Hoffman, you have destroyed lives with your greed and arrogance. You betrayed the public trust, corrupted officials, and showed no remorse for your victims. You treated people as obstacles to be removed, not as human beings with families and dreams. The law allows me to sentence you to 25 years. I'm inclined to give you every single day." Gerald's lawyer started to object, but the judge cut him off. "Mrs. Hoffman, you enabled and profited from your husband's crimes. You enjoyed the lifestyle his corruption provided while turning a blind eye to the suffering he caused. You're equally guilty." Deborah finally looked up, her eyes finding Christine in the gallery. Christine looked away. Judge Durham pronounced sentence. 25 years for Gerald, 15 for Deborah. No parole eligibility for 5 years. Asset forfeiture to compensate victims. Permanent ban from holding business licenses in North Carolina. When the gavel fell, Harvey felt something release in his chest. It was done. Really, truly done. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Oliver Hunter asked Harvey for a statement. "Justice was served today. Not just for my father, but for every person Gerald Hoffman hurt in his pursuit of wealth." I hope this sends a message that no one is above the law, no matter how much money they have or how many connections they've bought. Harvey paused. And I hope my daughter grows up knowing that when someone does wrong, there are consequences. Always. Melody tugged his hand. Can we go home now, Dad? Yeah, baby. We can go home. They walked to the car together, leaving the courthouse and the Hoffmans' downfall behind. Christine caught up with them in the parking lot. Harvey, thank you. He raised an eyebrow. For what? For showing me what real strength looks like. For protecting Melody when I didn't. For being the person I should have believed in all along. She wiped her eyes. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but you're her mother. You'll always have a place in her life if you want it. But it has to be as you, not as Gerald and Deborah's daughter. Can you do that? Christine looked at Melody, then back at Harvey. I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. That's all I can ask. She kissed Melody's forehead and walked away. Harvey watched her go, wondering if she'd ever fully break free from the Hoffman's shadow. Time would tell. A month later, the civil settlements were finalized. The Hoffman estate, the massive house, the vacation properties, the cars, the art collection, everything was sold at auction. The proceeds were divided among the victims. Harvey's share, representing what his father had lost, came to $340,000. He put it in a trust for Melody's education. The house on Oakmont Street was finally finished. Harvey had repaired the roof, painted the walls, updated the kitchen. It would never be fancy, would never impress people like the Hoffmans. But it was home. It was honest. It was theirs. On a warm Saturday in April, Harvey was in the garage teaching Melody how to change a tire, the same garage where Aaron Sawyer had taught him. She was focused, determined, asking questions, and really listening to the answers. Why do we need to know this, Dad? Can't we just call someone? You can always call someone. But it's good to be able to handle things yourself. To not depend on other people for everything. Harvey tightened a lug nut. Your grandpa Aaron taught me that. He said the best revenge against people who doubt you is to be capable, to be strong, to prove them wrong by being excellent. Is that what you did? With Grandma and Grandpa Hoffman? In a way, they thought I was just some dumb soldier who'd roll over and take whatever they dished out. But I was smarter than they gave me credit for. And when they pushed too far, when they hurt you, I showed them exactly what happens when you underestimate a Sawyer. Melody thought about this, her small hands working the wrench. I'm glad I'm a Sawyer. Harvey's throat tightened. Me too, baby. Me too. That evening, after Melody was asleep, Harvey sat on the back porch with a beer, looking at the stars. His phone rang. Tony Farley. Just thought you'd want to know. Gerald tried to file an appeal. Judge denied it. He's going to die in prison. Good. You okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. It's just. Harvey paused, searching for words. For so long, I've been angry, focused on making them pay. And now they have, and I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired, ready to move forward. That's called closure, brother. Enjoy it. You earned it. After hanging up, Harvey thought about his father, about the man who'd taught him to be honest and work hard and treat people with respect. Aaron Sawyer hadn't lived to see justice for what was done to him, but his son had made sure it happened anyway. We got them, Dad, Harvey whispered to the night. Every last one of them. A warm breeze rustled through the trees, and for just a moment, Harvey could swear he felt his father's hand on his shoulder, proud and strong. Inside, Melody was dreaming peacefully, safe in the home her grandfather had built, protected by the father who'd fought for her, surrounded by the love she deserved all along. And in a federal prison 3 hours away, Gerald and Deborah Hoffman were learning what it meant to lose everything, to face consequences, to finally pay for their crimes. The story was over. The bad guys had lost. The good guys had won. And Harvey Sawyer, standing on his father's porch in the house where he'd grown up, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Melody would keep growing. Christine would keep trying to rebuild their relationship. Life would continue, complicated and messy and real. But tonight, Harvey Sawyer allowed himself to simply stand still, breathe deep, and know that he'd done right by his daughter, his father, and himself. Justice had been served. And that was enough. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.